All right. Here we are. Good morning, everyone. Good afternoon for a lot of you. Let's move this. Everything's a little bit... My setup got a little messed up yesterday. And so I just need to rearrange a couple of things to make sure that my microphone is as loud as it's supposed to be. Let's see. Good morning. I hope everyone is doing well today. Let me know that you can hear me okay, that everything is working okay before we get started. Yes. Hello. Yes. Hello. Thank you all. Thank you all for being here. Welcome. Everyone can hear me okay, see me okay, everything looks okay. Yes. Good. All right. Yeah, a lot to talk about today. No doubt about it. Let me just let some more people filter in. I know the Euros, there's all of that going on. Man. A little bit sleepy. Yeah, it's, well, yeah, it's early. A little bit saturated. Oh, man. A little bit saturated. Let's turn the saturation down a little. No, I don't know. I had to get a new webcam because my last one was broken, unfortunately. There we go. Let's try that. And I had to get a new one because my last one was a little bit broken. It kept flicking. I don't know if you've watched the videos or live, you might have noticed this, but on occasion the color would like flick from like how it looks now to like kind of really gray, and then it would flick back and forth. And yeah, it would flick around a little bit, and I had to get a new one. So I haven't messed with the settings on this one totally yet. I just kind of plugged it in. I just kind of plugged it in and said, all right, let's get into it, because we were having I was having issues, and it was kind of annoying. It bothered me a lot watching it kind of change all the time. Because yeah, it would change, and sometimes it would look really gray, and if a cloud passed over, suddenly it would flick around. Anyway, boring stuff. But thank you all for being here. Thank you all for watching. Thank you all for everything. So what do we want to talk about today? Obviously, we're going to talk about the center back situation. Obviously, with everything going on, with what's come out the last few days, with Branthwaite, with well, clouds outside, which changed the lighting because there's a lot of natural light in my office. Damn. Okay. Center back situation. Zirkzee, other forwards, potentially wingers, things like that. Sales and outs, because we've seen some good progress there. Midfield, recruitment, things like that. And so we will get into all of that, and let's get our intro going. Here we go.
Someone cooked here.
Okay, so starting with, let's start in the area of center backs. I think we should start with talking about center backs, because obviously we are having some issues on this whole center back situation. Yesterday, UEFA came out that UEFA had blocked the purchase of Todibo, the transfer of Todibo from Nice to Manchester United. And yeah, that is unfortunate. I mean, it is a bit ridiculous. I understand that there are, complications with the multi-club thing. But that doesn't really, it's sort of a nonsensical thing, because it seems to only matter if they're in the same competition. Like, why does that make a difference? Why does the fact that they're in the same competition really make any sort of difference in terms of whether there's a legitimacy to the transfer or not? So if we're in the Champions League and they're in Europa, you're essentially incentivizing clubs in the multi-club model to keep other clubs shitty. Like, City have all these clubs that they keep really low, and they, loaned like Savio to Girona, for example. And then they can Girona. And then they can, just sell from the other club. It is a bit ridiculous. Angie, just like the intro, I hope Ineos start cooking. Me too. We need to talk about it. Fame Yasin, you do things to me my girlfriend can't. X. Interesting. She can't give you transfer news, I guess. I'm just going to take it as that. DB Cooper, my old nemesis. Can Branthwaite push past the 30th? Yeah, let's talk. We'll talk about that in just a second here for sure. For sure, we will talk about that in just a second. So it's a bit ridiculous, but it also puts us in a little bit of a difficult situation. It puts us in quite a difficult situation to be in, doesn't it? Because what's the problem with this? The original strategy was looking really good. Number one, it was, we've got these major top targets, right? And there was 4 players they were really interested in looking for. Tosin, as a second CB signing, but they're really interested in him as an opportunity as a center back. Sorry, I'm gonna get distracted. No, I didn't attend the Kendrick show last night, but I did watch the whole thing. It was awesome. It was really great. I thought it was an excellent show. Tosin, who they missed out on. Then they had their 3 kind of plan A players, which was Branthwaite, Todibo, and Lenny Yoro, right? And we always kind of knew Lenny Yoro was a long shot, but we kind of had Todibo in the back pocket, saying, well, if we cannot get who we want, if we cannot get Branthwaite on a good deal, we could always turn to Todibo and we're happy. We get a fast, physical, young, high-ceiling player in at a reasonable and affordable price. But not anymore. Now we can't. That sucks. That's a problem. You take then Lenny Yoro as the long shot, Todibo off the table. That's going to put United in a difficult situation in this Branthwaite transfer, because there's a lot less leverage. A big part of negotiations is, of course, having your alternative targets lined up. They obviously still have other names. They still have other targets. They still have other people. And no, you cannot do loans between these clubs. You still have other people, but now you start moving down the list, right? And that's okay if you're getting better deals as you go down the list. What's the problem? What are some of the other names that we're interested in? Kilman from Wolves, 27 years old, going to be 50 million. Why? What's the point? If you have to pay 60 to get in a much younger player that is much more what you want, and probably is on lower wages than Kilman, I imagine, just based on age and such, why would you pay 10 million less if you have to go to 60 or 50 is your ceiling? Do you save the 10 million to get a far older player with no resale value at the end of his contract that doesn't fit as much what you want? That doesn't make sense. That's, you still have to prioritize football over finance. You move on to Mark Guehi. He's not going to be cheaper than Branthwaite. He's going to be 60 to 70 million. He's an England international starting right now in the Euros. He's a great player. He's a really good player. I think signing him would be great. He's not going to be any cheaper. Crystal Palace are not a club that are going to sell easy. So, that I look at it and I start to go, that Todibo deal being ruled out is seriously problematic for the strategy of having, alternative discussions. And it is ridiculous that that is the case from UEFA. It is absolutely ridiculous. It's absurd. There's no reason. Like Sir Jim said in his interview, you have a player who wants to move. Todibo wants to be, he can't control his career now and get to the club he wants to go to, because where United have been chasing him for over a year, since before Ineos got in, because they're in the same competition. If we lost the FA Cup, or if we qualified for Champions League, then he could. If we were in the Conference League, then he could. It honestly blows my mind. It's the stupidest stuff. Jay Brew, Boca Juniors center back. Yeah, and Solminho, he's a cheap release clause and a high ceiling. Why aren't we interested? I don't know. We have scouted him. We have looked at him. I talked about him a little earlier in the year. I don't know why. It seems like we're still not in position to recruit properly from South America. We don't have whatever the resources we need are in order to make those deals and follow through with them, because yes, we should absolutely be looking at that. Okay, well, there's another name, yes, which is a real name for a backup center back, but I'm going to disagree with your assessment on this. Gonzalo Inacio, 60 million release clause, so it's similar to what you're paying for Branthwaite. But there's a major problem, isn't there? He's a left-sided center back, like very left-sided at this point in his career. He does not have Branthwaite's right foot. The whole point of Branthwaite is you're getting almost two players in one who can play on the right and back up Lisandro Martinez as a strong option and is big and physical and all of that. Gonzalo Inacio doesn't make sense in that respect. He's not going to play with Martinez, so you're saying Maguire is your guy. Bremer, 27 years old as well, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, right. How old is Bremer? Yeah, 27. 27 years old as well, and he's going to cost 60 plus million. Where's the better deal here? You see, if you're going down the list and then you want to spend less because you're getting less good options, you don't go down the list to say spend as much. De Ligt is a terrible option. One, because he's not been that good. He's 50 million and he's on 250,000 a week. If you were going to put Branthwaite on 100,000 less, you're talking about 5 million more per year for De Ligt. So that means over the lifetime of the contract, you're paying 25 million. Okay, more. So if you buy De Ligt for 40 and you buy Branthwaite for 65, you're getting the same, but you're getting a better option in one. Again, it doesn't make sense. These are the things that don't add up. Kent Nice just released Todibo. That's an interesting question. I doubt that they would, because what's the financial incentive for them? He'd have to cancel his contract. They would have to get no money in return. And I don't think there's a financial incentive for that. For anybody. Yeah, it doesn't really work that way. So I start moving down the list and I start going, this doesn't make sense. Antonio Silva is going to be as expensive or more than Branthwaite. I don't see an option that's better, and that's the problem now that we face in the negotiations over him, is without that Todibo backup, without that Todibo, Diomande is not an option. He's not on United's list. I haven't looked at him. The PR disaster, yeah, I agree. But at the same time, we've got to look at it and say, what are your choices now? You have to get a center back, and you just lost Rafael Varane, who's a very good player. This is a discussion to be made on what's the problem with our transfer policy. Is it overpaying, or is it overpaying for bad players? That's an issue. That is an issue. And yeah, I'm sure there are other options. I'm sure there are. But when you look at the center back market, they're all in the same price range for good players, aren't they? I don't see a 40 million pound center back that is a clear upgrade, frankly, on Harry Maguire, especially one that's not on 250,000 a week. Angie, if we can't get Branthwaite, then we need to get a young, cheap, high ceiling right center back, another center back, maybe Inacio. Otherwise, it's just bad execution. Right. So you got to move down and say, well, Maguire maybe is our starter, and we get someone with potential. But the Todibo deal really weakens our position because he was the other option that was as good. And I don't want to sign bad, average players for backups, like you say in there. That to me is a mistake. I'd rather sign like nobody and get some youth player coming in than go and buy more Deadwood in the future. You know, I would take Chalobah to replace Lindelof if you're signing another center back on top who's really good. Branthwaite is really good. You know, I know there's other names out there, Calafiori, all of that people are talking about. One, I think maybe there's a little bit of, you know, flavor of the month with some of those too. But at the same time, I don't think that United would get him. Liverpool are also in for them. There's other clubs in, I think Juventus are in for Calafiori. I listened to Fabrizio Romano yesterday. He said he has an agreement. He wants to go to Juventus. So Juventus are going to try to shift out Bremer probably to make space for him. He wants to stay in Italy. You know, we've seen this story before. Yeah, I'm not seeing this great option. I know that's not good, but I'm not seeing this great option for the center back situation. I'm not. I really don't. I don't see where it is. And when you look at the briefs today, what do they all say? Because there are a little bit of briefing, maybe not a brief, but a little bit of a leak, right? They'll look at other alternatives and suddenly they can only name Lenny Euro. So it's kind of like, if we get Euro or we've got to pay up for Branthwaite. Look, let's do a poll. Let's do a poll. This is just my opinion, but this is how I see it. Let's do a poll. Branthwaite. What is the questions I'm asking here? What are the questions I'm asking? Let me see. What question am I asking here? Stretch Branthwaite for 60 million, or get like a you know, like a Kilman for 40 million, or well, no, not Branthwaite or Euro, because everybody should pick Euro. If we could get Euro, that would be amazing, you know. Or like, I don't know. I don't even know what to ask here. Like, what is the debate? What is the debate a little bit, you know? You know, I could put quite a few options on here. Yeah. Go ahead. Let's see. I'm just putting a few options on here. I'm curious what people will say about this. But I don't even know what the debate is, to be honest. Like, I'm not even sure. Because when I look at it, I think about it, I'm like, the debate is do you overpay? I guess the question is, do you overpay a little bit? Do you stretch a little bit for your top choice player? Or do you go down the list and still pay a lot for a less top choice player? Or do you not get a good center back at all? Those are probably the three options. Was it only ever Todibo or Gerrard and not both? No, it could have been both as well. Yeah, that's the thing. Depending on the sales, depending on things like that, it could have been both. It could have been both. Lit will not lower his wage. Come on now. Yeah. Lit will not. I don't ever bet on players lowering their wages. Yeah. Look, I get it. There's other names out there. I'm just talking about in terms of what, you know, I'm talking about in terms of what we've seen as real options. Oh my god. What the hell is that message? So, yeah. Leon, thank you. You didn't send a message. If you type something, I'll try to answer it, but thank you for that. Yeah, so the clear answer here was, you know, Branthwaite, right? I mean, the clear answer was to overpay for Branthwaite. Look, like I've debated this because I've said this before about our plan in the market. I know that a lot of people think where we've been bad in the market under the Glazers. This is just my opinion based on what I've seen. I know that a lot of people think where we've been bad in the market is that we've overpaid. That's true, but I would argue it's not really that. We've overpaid for our backup options because what tends to happen is we have a plan. We have a first choice plan, and then we abandon it. We mess around with it. We don't get it done. We head to the backups. We screw around even more, and then we end up overpaying either for the first choice way later in the window where we're severely overpaying, not really, or we end up overpaying for backups. Like, take our huge overpay, right? We pay for the wrong players when we overpay. We bought Harry Maguire for 80 million because we didn't pay for him 40, 50 million, which people thought was an overpay a year earlier. And there were other choices. We skipped out on signing Ruben Diaz, who Jose Mourinho recommended, right? For a much cheaper fee, even though he was still significantly expensive, 40, 50 million, you know? So we abandoned paying too much for first choices and then ended up paying more for backups. We overpaid for Rasmus Højlund. We did overpay for him because we didn't want to pay for Harry Kane, right? So we end up paying too much money for a backup option. Not saying Rasmus Højlund is a good player, but that wasn't the price we were ever intending to pay, you know? We overpay for Casemiro because that summer we spent it all chasing Frankie de Jong foolishly instead of buying one of the other midfielders that were listed. We overpaid for Antony because we didn't buy the first striker and winger targets early in the window. The overpaying usually comes about by messing around and overpaying for the wrong people. Paying big fees is not great, but we can afford it, frankly, if we are actually getting good players. At the end of the day, if you buy a worse player for similar money, but you save a little bit, where does that money savings get you on the pitch? It doesn't get you anywhere unless you're buying better players. There's another argument to be made here. Our second top target is Zirkzee. He has a release clause. No matter what we pay for Gerard Branthwaite, it's going to be the same fee to Bologna for Zirkzee. So that's okay. That's good. That's not a bad thing. You know, I think that there's still within reason what we can go for. There's still a reason what we can do. There's, you know, you still don't want to pay 70 million. You know, you're not going to throw a 70 million flat bid for Branthwaite, but I think that it's reasonable to say that they could stretch a little bit, you know, 50 plus 10, something like that, and get a deal done. Really quickly, let me just give what my understanding of the situation is then, because that was all a bunch of yap. My understanding of the situation is that they've maintained talks because originally they got some indications that they would settle a bit, from maybe the 75, 80 million range, right? Obviously, they've maintained talks throughout this week. They've maintained contacts throughout this week. Obviously, it's not enough. And it seems like they're looking at it and saying, this is the final point. Tell us today, tomorrow, that you're willing to move on this a little bit, or we'll walk away from the discussions, or we're going to put that second bid in. And I think the second bid will be a bit higher. I'm still optimistic that it'll happen, but that's kind of where it stands. We've given Everton a bit of that, not ultimatum, but that, you know, let us know now in the next 24, 48 hours whether there's a deal here potentially on the table. I don't know at this point whether we've stretched and said, well, we're willing to go up a little bit higher than our original number if you know, are willing to play ball with us. But it has to be the last bid or walk away. Problem is, again, walk away to who? Now that Todibo is off the table, that's not great. They could throw a big bid in for Lenny Yoro. You know, we could try to find a big bid for Lenny Yoro and kind of force the issue, but I don't know. I don't know about that one. I'm not seeing like the likelihood of that is still unfortunately extremely low. So that's on center back. So I think this is coming to a head now. Um, yeah. If Lindelof is sold, that gives us a little bit of an advantage. The Lindelof sale is in a situation similar to Fred. Actually, the same age. He will be the same age next season as when we sold Fred to the same club in Turkey. They're interested. They're willing to make a deal around the same price. What did we end up selling Fred for? We end up selling Fred for 10 million plus 5 in add-ons, apparently. 10 million euros plus 5 in add-ons. So we're very likely to, there's a decent chance that we're offered for Lindelof a similar deal to Fred, which is that we would sell him for maybe somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 million euros. He has about 2 million euros in terms of his book value. And what that means is we would get a decent amount of profit on this deal. If that happens, we could get 6-8 million in profit. Problem is as well when you're selling players similar to Fred on them doing a +1, that often you have to pay them a little bit of that money. But either way, even an extra 5 or 6 million in profit helps in terms of being able to move forward with some kind of deal. So, that might help. That might fund, though, I think more like a Chalaba as a second center back signing, which I wouldn't be against at all. Yeah. Again, guys, when you're talking about some of these backups, Murillo, he's going to be 60, 70 million as well. I don't know. People seem to have this idea that there's like these affordable, high quality options in the market, but there's not. Where are they? I get it that we can take a punt on a South American center back or something like that, but that doesn't mean it's a guarantee. They work sometimes, they don't. That's not what we're looking at when we're trying to replace Rafael Varane. We need reliability. We need someone with real high potential. And one of the focuses of Ineos has been as well Premier League experience. Again, guys, like top level and Premier League experience in certain key positions, because then you get less risk of failing in transition when you're signing those players. So that is an important point and something that is meaningful. And we can name a million center backs, but they're not all going to be options. Let's move on to the forwards because there's some things I want to talk about here. Obviously, the Zirkzee interest continues to be the first choice we've seen. As I said, I believe he's the strongest candidate. He's someone that Wilcox and such really like. He's someone that Wilcox really likes. No, the recruitment department is fine. There's good signings. That's the thing. Like you can't keep saying that the recruitment target needs to find better players, but then they find them and then say, well, no, we can't spend a lot of money. Sometimes the best players just cost a lot of money. That's football. It is what it is. Spend the 50 to 60 million when you need it. Olise is 65 million. It is what it is. That's the price. Sometimes you just have to pay what it takes if you've identified good players. Sometimes that's just what it costs to get them. There may be other options, but for the specific need, you got to just sometimes pay what you can get. In terms of the forwards, Zirkzee continues to be someone that is of serious interest to Wilcox. As you saw with some of the reports today, it looks like we're willing to potentially make, don't use that phrase. I'm gonna have, don't use that phrase. It's just a warning. If you use it in chat and Discord and anywhere to describe the Chelsea thing, don't use that phrase. The Zirkzee being someone that Wilcox really likes. I want to talk about this again. Marcus Rashford, somebody who wants to clarify his future. There's options for him. I don't think he will be sold this summer just because I don't think that they want to. And I think that they're trying to do what they can to define his role. He would have suitors, when he was before he signed his contract, he had interest from a lot of clubs. I mean, even including Manchester City, who wanted him to run his contract down and sign for them. They did the same thing with Pogba, right? Previously, there's a lot of clubs out there, and there's a big club in Europe right now that are looking at Rashford as a potential option. But based on my understanding of the situation, and this applies to Bruno as well, there is a drive, a push from following player meetings and things like that, that Wilcox, they really want to keep him. They want to keep Rashford. They want to keep Bruno. They want to keep them and have a team that gets the most out of everybody. So I've been talking about this a lot the last few weeks, and I'm quite confident. It's why I was confident that Zirkzee would become a strong target over the last few weeks. And we've seen the reports today. What did Ducker say on this? He said that I think it was Ducker's report, right? What did he say? What did Ducker say? United are in talks with Zirkzee's camp, and while they maintain they have other options of L, there's serious interest in bringing the Dutchman to Old Trafford, are preparing to trigger the release clause. They're very, very interested in doing that. They really want to do that. They really want to get this done. And they do. They really want to get this done. They really want to bring someone like him in and make it work within the team so that they can get the most out of Rashford and Bruno and all of them. Barcelona have had a lot of interest in the past in Rashford as well. Absolutely. It's sort of funny because I've said this before. The perception of people in football about Rashford doesn't match the hate that fans gave this year. It's just the reality of the situation. Not even a little bit. There are clubs lining up, but at the same time, they wouldn't want to get into it unless they feel like he's going to leave. But yeah, this is something, Wilcox, in evaluating the team, looks at and says this is a good option that would allow us to be a lot more flexible and would help us get more out of the players that we have. Even still, and with that, they obviously getting Greenwood sold would be a big one. And we've seen that there's a lot of interest in Mason Greenwood now. The offers are likely to be closer to that 25 million mark, at least in the base fee plus add-ons. From clubs, we've seen there was reports, Lazio, all of that. The Zirkzee's release clause is in July. So we kind of have the information. We wait till July. We go ahead. We can trigger it and see if we can force it. Lazio, a lot of other clubs interested in Mason Greenwood. It looks very likely that we can sell him for that 25 to 30 million mark. I think it would be good. I think that would be really good to get that done. I think that would be really good to get that out. That provides a lot of profitability. Obviously, then Sancho, if you can get him on loan with an option to somewhere like, I think Juventus are interested in him, that makes a lot of space. That's going to severely increase the budgetary, situation where, the 25 million profit on Greenwood plus some other things and a little sale of Lindelof, you're starting to talk about freeing up a lot of money to be able to be spent on transfers. So that would help a lot. That would help them get, obviously, I think they could get a center back and Zirkzee over the line with kind of their current budget, but that would help it stretch to the next signings. In terms of forwards, obviously, they are still interested in Olise, okay? They are. They still like Olise. There's still a thought that if they can get these sales out, that they could still get in there, that the player's going to take his time, but it's certainly difficult to do. But they do need players there. There's other winger options, obviously, they could move to, and I would still not rule out getting a winger, potentially, if they get a good sale of Greenwood, if they can move Sancho out, if they get this deal, this good opportunity for Zirkzee. We've talked about, it's been discussed, like Nico Williams in the past as a name. I think he's a little lower down the list. I'd be interested in a Xavi Simons, Xavi Simons for an option on a loan, just to see. They've looked at a lot of other names in the past. They've looked at like Marcus Edwards, who's I think Spurs are looking at bringing back again as an affordable option, 15 or 20 million or something like that, to add somebody on the right side. They've looked at a lot of options there. I don't think they want to spend a lot of money if it's not Olise. I don't think they want to spend a lot of money if it's not Elise. So I think you're looking at, if we can get Zirkzee in, we know we've got good players in Garnacho and Rashford. So maybe then if you're not going to get a top player in like Elise, you move down. You don't want to spend too much there. So, I think that as well. Other striker names, obviously, Ivan Toney, Desiree Doué could be an option, but I think he's going to be really expensive. I think he's going to be really expensive. I think he's going to be a lot more than some of the prices that have been put out there. I think that's a little bit of a bait to get clubs coming in, and then 60 million. Other striker options, Ivan Toney has remained an option. Ivan Toney remains an option, but then also, I saw there's been some more talk of Jonathan David. We've talked about him in the past. I don't think he continues to be a strong choice. My understanding of it was, because I've named him before, is that he's not somebody the club feel are good enough. But I get a little worried here because he's somebody that Erik ten Hag has liked and even wanted to sign at Ajax. And I've mentioned that before. And I have concerns, which we'll get to when we get to the midfield section and the final section, about still that kind of influence and how it could affect things at United this year. While there's still no new contract for Ten Hag, we don't want to sign Jonathan David. The club are not in a position where they think, yeah, Jonathan David is the guy. They're not that interested. So hopefully that's not where we go to. Maybe you can go to some other cheaper options, but I don't have any other names beyond that in the striker situation. In terms of outs, obviously, we have discussed a few already. We've discussed that you get some people looking at bushes and trees and coming to inspect. There's always somebody in the background walking through the yards and trees in these offices. But in terms of outs, we've talked about Lindelof potentially being sold. We've talked about Greenwood and Sancho. Those are like the obvious ones. Eriksen could be as well. But there's a few other positions certainly of note. Wan-Bissaka in a situation where he could still go. The issue there is there a budget replacement for him to come in? But he could still go if we could find a budget replacement there. Obviously, Van de Beek would be sold if he could. Casemiro and McTominay, there's a bit of a balance here. Which is that there's interest in McTominay and there's a consideration that he could be sold. But at the same time, if Casemiro were to leave, then they're probably not going to sell McTominay because they're being, that would force them into not having as many options as they would want to have. If Casemiro stays, then there's more chance that McTominay could leave, which would allow for a signing in this area, which would allow for someone to, which would allow for, there's a good profitability on a McTominay sale that would allow for a midfield, a bit more money on the midfield. But it's up in the air. These are the things that are up in the air. What do they pay for Branthwaite? What do they pay for Zirkzee? Does anybody come in for Casemiro? Then what can you sell for McTominay? And that's going to determine the level of midfielder that they can get. Are you going for a Fofana for 15, 20 million? We'll get to midfielders in a second. Or can you spend more money? So that's a little bit of the thing there. It's more likely still that Casemiro goes and McTominay stays. But McTominay has options. And McTominay has options. And if he goes. But it would be difficult maybe to replace everybody. Because you are a little light if you're left with Bruno, Mount, and Kobbie Mainoo. McTominay could be still a good squad player. We saw that he can contribute positively if he's a squad player. And that's fine. But deployed correctly, right? So, that's part of it there. So there's still some things up in the air. Same thing goes for Harry Maguire, right? If Lindelof leaves, it's very unlikely that Maguire leaves as well. And I think that considering it's more likely we only get one top center back, I would keep Harry Maguire at this point. Earlier in the year, it looked more likely he would go, but he's had a good season. We're less likely to get two good center backs, so more likely Maguire would stay as a good option that could play with Branthwaite, with Martinez, if we get Branthwaite and fit into there. So it would be better to keep Maguire at this point. And that's where I'm saying, like, everything can't be a financial decision. You make more money selling Maguire. But do you have a better team by selling Maguire or Lindelof? You have a better team by selling Lindelof and keeping Maguire in this situation. So, that's kind of where it stands. That's kind of the situation on that. Let's go to the midfield. Let's go to the midfield. What does this even say? Oh my God. My wife said, hey, take this coffee cup. I have no idea what's on it. It looks like it's some, I don't know what the hell that is. Anyway, so on the midfield options, there's a lot of options that we know of. There's Fofana. There's Onana at Everton. Ederson at Atalanta has been scouted. João Neves, obviously someone they really like, but expensive. Yeoman, someone they really like, but kind of expensive, although I have some debate over that price. There's probably two different levels of center of midfielder that we're looking at. And then there's like keeping Amrabat, and then Andre Onana. That poor guy. They get his name right, There's Amadou Onana is his name, and and then Hayden Hackney. Yeah, that's a name I've mentioned before that they've looked at. But so there's probably there's probably two. That is such a funny video though. Like, it's so endearing, like his ability to switch up his accent in such like a heartbeat from his native language to like a heavy British accent. It's very endearing. Love that. Anyway, there's probably kind of like those two brackets of midfielders that come down to financials, where you have your cheaper ones, keeping Amrabat, Fofana, Thuram, though I don't know if he's much of an option. Someone on a free like Rabiot, which I don't think is that real of an option. And then there's your upper bracket, which is where if you could have the money, you go for a João Neves or a Yeoman, depending on how much money you have, or an Amadou Onana, even though that seems unlikely. Ederson would be fairly expensive, but have a lot of competition too. So a lot of that depends on how you getting on with those outs, with Casemiro, with McTominay, with all of that. A lot of it is really dependent on what happens there, and what happens with those players. Because if those players don't move, if you can only sell a little bit, if you're keeping Casemiro, then it's going to change what you're going to get. But it's also, do you get Zirkzee, or are you forced to pay more for a different striker, or where do you go on the wings? So there's a lot of things up in the air before they know what they can spend in the midfield, but those are all options. Weaver, yeah, but I don't think he's really an option at this point for United. Wharton is not going to be sold right now. So yeah, complicated. I mean, these are like the complications that we're talking about. Sorry, let me just look at something really quick. These are the complications that you're talking about when, in this market right now. Sorry, I'm just looking for something, making sure I didn't miss anything while I'm on here. No, okay. Yeah. John Sem, can we agree that West Ham's Edson isn't good enough? Yes, and that's the thing, okay? That really, really worries me. I mean, it really worries me. It's such a red flag. Edson Alvarez is not good enough. He'd be expensive. He's already somebody turned down by United. The only reason he would even be under consideration is Ten Hag. And everybody agreed with me on this. Most of you want Ten Hag to stay and wanted him to stay, and he's staying, and that's fine. But nearly everybody agrees you got to take that recruitment power away. You know, you've got to take that recruitment power away. You have to change the way that the recruitment is done. You have to have it be club-led, have a club-led recruitment, club-led style, club-led everything in this vein, and let Ten Hag focus on being a coach. Even in Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments, he said Eric is a good coach. Okay? That has to stay. United View, thanks guys. Yeah, and remember I did a video with Flex United View yesterday. Make sure you go watch that as well. It was awesome to do that with Flex. Thank you guys for that again. But it has to be club-led, you know, and then Eric can focus on coaching. He can focus on coaching. He can focus on doing something where he is probably a lot better at. Yeah, João Gomez, I forgot that one. Thank you for bringing that up because that's a name I've said before, and I think that's a pretty good middle kind of option where he'd be a decent price but is a good player. I think that'd be a really good option as well. But they've got to fix this because I struggle with this because I argue with people on this all the time, and I think that people, for some reason, consistently underplay the amount of influence that is had by this when the manager's still on the same contract. He's still on the same contract. He still has the final voice on transfers. He still has the biggest voice on transfers. He still has a veto on transfers. He's still involved in them. And I worry a little bit, you know, when you see his, and he has every right to be like this right now, but when you see his comments publicly, he's obviously he's a bit snarky with it, which is fine. Again, he has every right to be, but he obviously feels he's in a position of power with United now. And he said the contract isn't easy. And every time you bring up these concerns, a lot of people here just wave them away. Exactly. He's a bit smug in knowing he's got the power on this, that they had to show up hat in hand to him. And so, you know, he wants that influence. People keep saying he doesn't, but he does. There's no evidence that he doesn't want those kind of influence. He asked for that. And that was the whole reason they were looking in the first place at different managers because of the fit. I'm optimistic and hopeful that they agreed to a new deal with these things changed, but they haven't yet. And Ten Hag said it wouldn't be easy. So if you want Ten Hag to stay, which is totally understandable, that's just an opinion, that's fine. And he is going to be here next season, but they've got to figure this out because you can't keep doing this. This cannot keep happening. You know, you don't want to end up signing Jonathan David because Ten Hag likes him. You don't want to end up signing Brian Brobby at striker if you miss out on Zirkzee because Ten Hag likes him. You don't want to end up going for Edson Alvarez and wasting time on that. You don't want these things to kind of happen. You need to really focus on what you need to focus on and build for the future. You don't buy players for a manager. You buy players for a club strategy. That is the way that everything is going for the future, and they've got to stick with that. You know, and so, you know, Ineos have to fix that because otherwise you end up in a situation where you have a conflict, you know, where you have a conflict and you don't want a conflict, you know, you don't want it to be conflicted. Obviously, Ineos don't have to go buy players they don't want. But at the same time, you know, they can leverage it and say, look, we get these guys that we like or we don't get anybody. Okay. They could use that kind of leverage too, right? And say that Ten Hag, you know, take these players or we're not going to get anybody. They have leverage in that respect too. But you don't want that kind of conflict and those kind of problems in-house. And it really needs to be sorted because we need a win. We need a win. We need a win. We need things to progress forward now on this plan. And if Ten Hag stays, maybe it's going to work. Maybe it isn't. Obviously, people think he deserves a chance. But what you don't want is that if it doesn't work, you've continued building a team that isn't going to fit the next guy. You need a team that is going to fit everybody. You need a team that is going to progress forward. Whether Ten Hag works or he doesn't, so long as you recruit properly based on a club-led style and a club-led everything, then you're still progressing every year. If Wilcox wants Alvarez, I want Alvarez. He doesn't. The club looked at Alvarez in the past and said no, and he has not been good enough at West Ham. So we can't be doing that. We can't be doing that. We can't be doing those kinds of things. We cannot. You know, we still have to pursue a proper plan moving forward. So they've got to sort this out. Yes, it's as good as Ratcliffe confirming it. He said it himself to Bloomberg. People get caught up on these kind of things. They left no out for themselves. They briefed this story on him staying. It's not officially announced. That doesn't matter. He's staying. He's literally said it to Bloomberg in his interview that he's staying. Like, come on, you know, get real on it. He's staying. I'm fine with that. I've made my peace with that, and I want to look forward optimistically. But these are the things that need to be sorted out for him to stay and for it to be effective and for it all to work out the way that we want it to work out, right? So, yeah, these are some of the things that really do need to be sorted. These are some of the things that have to be figured out. I'm still optimistic, but we need to start. You don't want to compromise. I disagree with compromise. This is an area you don't compromise on. You can't compromise and buy 60 million in players on a compromise. That doesn't work. That's how you end up with more mistakes. There's one area you cannot compromise, and that is in your team building. You get what you need. You get what you identify. You don't get players you don't want as a compromise. It's so expensive. Those are the mistakes that literally kill you. I mean, the reason we don't have Harry Kane is because we compromised and bought Anthony for 80 million. That's the reason why. We didn't have the money. That's the reason why we're still struggling today, is because of compromising. We can't compromise on those areas. We have to get the players that the club wants. Yeah, of course it's an issue, but that's still their job. That's still their job. So as it stands, you know, yeah, backup, we overpaid for Maguire, no backup options. The thing is, we did, but we waited till the end of the window too. We could have bought him earlier, and we could have bought different players earlier. So, you know, basically in kind of summary of the whole thing, kind of making it clear to Everton where we stand, that we need them to move, on this price. Personally, I think you stretch a little bit and get him because of the lack of a clear and top alternatives. I think you stretch a little bit and get him because we really need that top center back and someone that's going to be valuable for the future. Progress on progress on Greenwood out. Progress potentially on Lindelof out, which is good. Zirkzee is looking better and better. Again, we can't trigger that clause till July 1st, it sounds like. So it just makes sense that it's kind of going to sit where it sits until then, and then maybe trigger it and try to execute that quickly. So I think big stuff here, because they need a win. If you can get Branthwaite and Zirkzee in the door by early July, if you can get Branthwaite done before June 30th, and you can get Zirkzee by early July, then you've got a win. Then you've got some big wins. You've got a really good center back, and you've got a forward line that is much improved and suits your team. Then you got them on a pretty decent prices too, because maybe you're at around 190 to 100 million in spend. So if you can move on Greenwood, move on Lindelof, and then move on a midfielder, you've got a lot of options in terms of how you can buy in the midfield, where a lot of money is spent. Yeah, so here's the issue. I get what you're saying on compromise, but let me try to describe the problem. If you only sign players that the manager and Ineos agree on, that's not good. That's not good enough. Because let's say I'm the manager and I say, for whatever reason, my opinion is I only want players who are 5'11". I only like players who are 5'11", right? There could be amazing 6'1" players, but I don't want them. There could be amazing 5'8" players, but I don't want them. There might be some good 5'11" players too. And so if you compromise and only get those, sure. But then you're limiting your options. You don't know you're getting the best players. You don't know you're getting the right fit players. You're only getting them because I like them because they're 5'11". That's not the strategy. Like, that doesn't give you the right profiles. They shouldn't necessarily have, like, you want to have a voice. You want to have the manager have a voice. But the problem is when they have a really strong, when they have too much influence and too strong a voice, they feel like they are able to turn things down, and limit your options. You don't want to limit your options. You want to say to the manager, these are it. These are the 2-3 players we're getting. Do you have a preference? And then he says, yeah, I have a preference. But yeah, it's not great. I'm concerned about it. I am concerned about it at this point in time. Yeah. Because it's looking, not good at this point in time. Yeah. Like I said, they need a win, and that's where I get a bit concerned. They need a win now. With Todibo off the table, then we're falling down the list of center backs, and we could end up spending more money on worse center backs, or spending the same on worse center backs. I'd be happy. There's good players out there that we could get, but I'm not sure that we're going to be getting better options, and we might be waiting even longer to bring players in. If we can get Euro, though, I'll be over the moon. So, you got to almost hope and pray if we can't get Branthwaite that we can get Euro in. But, we do need to get some players moving. Players are returning in 3 weeks, right? 2.5, 3 weeks. We've got a lot to get done in that period of time. And, there's worrying signs. I support Ineos in what they're doing. I think in the long term, it's all going to work out really well. But there are worrying signs. The failure to get Ashworth's situation sorted is a worrying sign. They needed that. Anyone can believe whatever they want to believe on this. The way that the manager's thing played out wasn't good. I know certain things with as much certainty as is possible to know. It did not play out in this great, clean way of that maybe some have presented it. It didn't. That didn't work out. They still don't have a new contract for him. That was step 0 for me. If you're keeping Ten Hag, then you need a contract that aligns everything. You either need a new manager that's in alignment, or you need Ten Hag on a contract that's in alignment. They haven't got that done. So Ashworth, the manager situation, if they're not able to sort out this Branthwaite thing alongside getting ruled out from Todibo, these are a lot of red flags kind of piling up. And so we really need to see some successes, some wins, because you can't take loss after loss. And we're moving forward. We've got to get into the future. We've got to get into the future. We've got to get into some players in before the window starts. We're not going to have a better season. Like, if you look at it this way, right? There's being optimistic. But if we have the same manager on the same contract, with the same style of play, with the same tactics, with the same squad, minus Rafael Varane, minus a happy Casemiro, we're not going to be better. We need things have to happen for us to be better next season than things have been. Injuries might be a little better. If you believe that without injuries we were going to be a great team, then fair play to you. I don't. I think that we got found out a bit last year in addition to the injuries. We need improvements. We need improvements in order for next season to get better. And right now, that should be the case. So, all right. Any other questions? Please put them in now before I end this. Thank you to everybody who has donated in those questions so far. Adding to this, thank you for everybody who's watched. Thank you for everybody who's followed. Thank you for everybody who keeps working, watching, following. Make sure to like the video and do all that and try to push it out there. We've seen great growth. We're almost 19,000 subscribers, which is crazy. No idea what I was doing when I started this. I would love to, I'm sure we'll get to 20,000 during the window. We have the summer tour in a month. I need to figure out how to do some content with that. I should be going to a couple of the games. I should be doing the media stuff again with that. So hopefully I would like to, can make some good stuff yet and continue to grow and work on things. It's been awesome. It's been awesome to see this. I think a lot of stuff has come through in terms of information, in terms of all of that this year. I think it's been really positive, but I want to see execution now, and I think then we can all feel a lot more positive about everything that is going on at this point in time. So, all right, that's what I have. I don't see any other questions that I feel like answering at the moment. So let's see. Anything else? Look, someone's showing up to work on the grass or clean the windows. So I will end it here. Thank you all for watching. Again, make sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn notifications on. Everything that you do, support's very appreciated. Thank you very much. I will see you in the next one. There it is.